Hey everybody, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something that seems pretty straightforward on the surface, but when you actually start to think about, it gets really complex.
hmm
We're talking about blocking on TikTok.
Uh,
And we've got a great script here that really gets into all of the ins and outs of it.
yeah,
And I think it's something that just about everyone who's used TikTok has at least considered using if they haven't already used it.
absolutely.
But I'm really interested to kind of dig into why this seemingly simple feature has become such a big part of this whole online experience.
It's funny because in the real world, we block people all the time.
Right.
We choose not to see people or, we avoid people.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more subtle in the real world than it is online where it's just like, boom, this person's gone.
Right. Yeah. It's like this very binary thing online.
Right.
Whereas in the real world, there are all these subtle cues and like social norms around how you disengage with people. So let's get into it. Like, why would someone even want to block another user on TikTok? Like, I mean, sometimes it's really obvious.
Yeah.
Like if someone is just spamming your comments with like junk
hmm
or those bot accounts that like slide into your DMs with shady stuff,
Sure.
but it's got to be more than that, right?
Yeah, it is. It's really about taking control of your online space
Yeah.
and protecting yourself from negativity.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it's not just about like avoiding the digital equivalent of a telemarketer.
Right.
Like it's about actually like having some agency over who you're interacting with.
Exactly. And think about the psychological impact of constantly being bombarded with negativity.
Right.
Even if it's just online,
Mm-hmm.
it can really wear you down.
Yeah, it's like you're curating your own little space on TikTok,
Uh-huh.
like making it a place where you feel safe and comfortable.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, this script mentions that blocking can actually help curate your For You page.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's not just about like getting rid of the stuff you don't want to see, but it's also about like shaping what you do see.
That makes sense.
So how do you actually go about blocking someone? Like what are the steps involved?
Well, it's pretty straightforward on mobile. You just find the profile you want to block,
Okay.
tap the share button,
Yeah.
and then hit block.
Oh, okay.
And on desktop, it's pretty similar. Just click the three dots on their profile and choose block.
And that's it.
Yeah, it's really simple.
And then what happens? Like, does the person know they've been blocked?
Not really. There's no notification or anything.
Oh, wow. So you could be blocked and not even know it.
Unless you specifically go to that person's profile and see that there's nothing there.
That's kind of wild, right? It's so subtle.
It is, but I think that's part of what makes it so effective.
Like, it's a way to just quietly step away from a situation without any drama.
Exactly.
But what if you need to block, like, a ton of people at once?
Like if you're getting spammed or harassed. Well, TikTok actually has a feature for that called bulk blocking.
Oh, really?
You can block up to 100 accounts at once.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like having a digital bouncer for your profile.
I love that.
So, if you're a public figure or someone who just tends to get a lot of unwanted attention,
Yeah.
this is a really useful tool.
Okay, so we've talked about why people might want to block someone and how to actually do it.
hmm
But what about the effects of blocking? Like, what exactly can a blocked user no longer do?
Well, basically, they're completely cut off from you.
Okay.
They can't comment on your videos. They can't send you direct messages. They can't even see your profile or your videos or anything.
Wow. So it's like they just disappear from your TikTok universe.
Pretty much, yeah.
But remember how we were talking about blocking as a way of setting boundaries?
Yeah.
Well, it goes both ways, right? Like you're also blocking yourself from seeing their content.
That's true. It's
Yeah.
definitely something to keep in mind.
So it's not just a one-sided thing. It's like this mutual kind of invisibility cloak.
I like that analogy.
So now that we've covered the basics of blocking,
Right.
let's start digging into some of the more nuanced aspects of it.
Me.
Like, what are the psychological effects of blocking and being blocked?
Oh, that's a great question.
And how does blocking actually shape the dynamics of online communities?
Now we're getting to the heart of it.
Stay tuned because we'll be exploring all of this and more in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we're back and ready to really get into the psychology of blocking on TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about the mechanics of like how to block someone, but the emotional side of it, I think, is even more interesting.
Absolutely. It's a really complex issue.
Yeah. And for the person who's doing the blocking,
Right.
It can be a real sense of relief. Like I'm finally you're taking control of your space and,
Right.
and protecting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine it's not always an easy decision.
No, not always.
Like what if you're blocking someone that you actually know in real life?
That's a really tough one.
Yeah, because it's not like you're ending the relationship completely.
Right. It's more nuanced than that.
It's just like this digital boundary.
Yeah, it's like saying, I don't want to see your stuff on TikTok,
Right.
but that doesn't necessarily mean I never want to talk to you again.
Right, exactly.
But it can still bring up a lot of complicated feelings,
I bet.
like guilt or anxiety, even sadness sometimes.
Yeah, like maybe you're second guessing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did I make the right decision?
Especially if it's someone you care about.
Exactly. So it's
Uh,
definitely not a simple thing.
No, it's not.
But then what about the person who's being blocked?
Oh, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, how do you think that makes them feel?
Well, I imagine it could be pretty hurtful.
Right, like a form of rejection almost?
Yeah, and confusing too, because they often don't know why they've been blocked.
That's true. It's not like you get a notification that says, hey, so-and-so blocked you because.
Exactly. So it can leave them wondering what they did wrong.
And that can lead to all sorts of assumptions and resentment. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can even make the situation worse.
How so?
Well, if someone's already feeling angry or hurt,
Right.
being blocked can just fuel those negative feelings.
Yeah, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Exactly. And it can make them lash out even more, either at the person who blocked them
Uh-huh.
or just generally online.
So it's like the weird cycle of negativity.
Yeah, it can be really hard to break out of.
But it's important to remember that even though it's happening online, it still has real-world consequences.
Absolutely. These are real people with real feelings.
Right. And we have to be mindful of that.
So it's a delicate balance. You know,
Yeah.
you want to protect yourself, but you also don't want to cause unnecessary pain.
And it makes me think about the bigger picture. Like, how does blocking affect online communities as a whole?
That's a great question.
Like, on the one hand, it gives people the power to create a safer space for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, could it lead to these echo chambers where everyone is just surrounded by people who agree with them?
That's a valid concern. Yeah, because if we're constantly blocking anyone who has a different opinion,
Right.
then we're not really exposed to any new ideas.
And that can be really limiting.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of what the internet is supposed to be about, which is
Yeah.
connecting us to a wider world.
But then again, blocking can also be a way to create more respectful online environments.
It's true.
Like if someone is being consistently disruptive or spreading harmful content,
Yeah.
removing them from the conversation can actually make it more productive.
It's like weeding out the toxic plants in your digital garden.
I like that analogy.
So it's a complex issue with no easy answer.
Definitely.
But I think the important thing is to be aware of the different sides of it
Mhm.
and to use blocking thoughtfully and responsibly.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of responsibility, remember how we talked about the possibility of unblocking someone?
Yeah,
That seems like a really powerful act, too.
it can be.
Like, it's almost like saying, okay, I'm willing to give you another chance.
Or I'm open to hearing what you have to say.
Exactly. It's a way to rebuild connections and create a more understanding online community.
I love that. And it shows that these online relationships aren't necessarily fixed.
No, they can evolve over time.
Yeah, just like relationships in real life.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Right.
what's the main takeaway here?
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground.
Blocking is a really powerful tool.
It is.
But it's not just about hitting a button.
Right.
It's about understanding the impact it has both on yourself and on others.
And using it ethically and thoughtfully.
Absolutely.
So before you block someone or even unblock someone,
Mm-hmm.
take a moment to think about why you're doing it
Right.
and what the consequences might be.
It's about making conscious choices that contribute to a healthier online experience for everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, in the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to explore some alternative approaches to dealing with negativity online.
Sounds interesting.
Because blocking isn't always the only solution.
Or the best solution. Exactly.
So, we've talked a lot about blocking, but is it like the only way to deal with negativity online?
That's a good question.
Eh,
You know, sometimes it feels like it's the only option.
Right, like you just want to shut it down.
Yeah. But I actually think there are other approaches that can be more effective.
Really? Like what?
Well, for example, if you're dealing with a lot of spam comments,
Yeah.
a lot of times there are settings you can adjust within the app itself.
Oh, right, like those filters and things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can automatically weed out a lot of the junk.
That's true. I always forget about those.
Yeah, it's easy to just jump to blocking, but sometimes there are simpler solutions.
Okay, so what about when it's not just spam?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if it's someone who's just constantly being negative or disrespectful?
You know, in those cases, sometimes engaging in a dialogue can actually be more helpful.
Really?
Yeah, even if it's just a brief comment explaining why you find their behavior inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It might not change their mind, but it could at least start a conversation.
And set some boundaries.
Right, exactly.
But let's be honest, sometimes engaging with those people just makes things worse.
That's true.
Some people just want to argue.
Yeah, like they thrive on the drama.
So in those cases, sometimes the best approach is to just disengage completely.
Like, just ignore them.
Exactly. It sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
But sometimes not responding is the best way to de-escalate a situation.
Like, you're not giving them the attention they're craving.
Right, and it also shows that you're not going to get dragged into their negativity.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
But it must be hard to just ignore someone who's really pushing your buttons.
It can be. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But it's a valuable skill to develop because sometimes walking away is the most mature and responsible thing you can do.
I guess you're right.
It's not about letting them win.
Right.
It's about choosing not to participate in their game.
I like that. So we've talked about adjusting settings, engaging in dialogue, and disengaging. Are there any other alternatives to blocking?
Well, one that's often overlooked is reporting. Oh, right. You can actually report people to TikTok.
Exactly. If you see someone being harassed or bullied or just generally behaving badly,
Yeah.
you can report their account and TikTok will review it.
And hopefully take action.
Right. They have teams dedicated to dealing with this stuff.
It's good to know that there are people working behind the scenes to make TikTok a safer place.
Absolutely. And it's important for us as users to help them out by reporting bad behavior.
It's like we're all in this together.
Exactly. It's a community effort.
So it sounds like there's a whole range of ways to deal with negativity online.
There is. It's not just about blocking.
Right. It's about being thoughtful and choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And sometimes the most powerful tool is simply choosing to focus on the positive.
That's a great point. It's like,
Yeah.
don't let the negativity win.
Right.
Find the people and the content that bring you joy.
And build a space where you feel happy and supported.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into blocking on TikTok,
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
it has. We've covered a lot of ground.
But I think the key takeaway is that you have more control over your online experience than you might realize.
Absolutely.
Whether you choose to block, engage, disengage, or report, make those choices consciously and thoughtfully.
It's about creating a better online world for everyone.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, stay positive out there.
And stay safe.